Am I the butthole for refusing to drive my wife, 31, to work while I am on vacation? My wife and I have been married for 7 years and mostly have a great relationship, but there is a major point of strife with transportation. She does not have a license and has no interest in driving. I did purchase driver training for her twice, and I bought a second car which is now collecting dust. She did not ever agree to practice after lessons and did not want to take the exam because she is too anxious. I suggested she try therapy for driving anxiety given my job provides insurance for this, but she is not interested. This is usually not a problem as I drive our son, too, to daycare and then drop her off. This adds to my commute but is good because we only pay for parking once. About 2x a week I have to work late, which I warn her of 2 weeks in advance. Usually she has her mom or her sister to drive her home on these days. Using this system we have gotten along for the last few years. I am on vacation right now for 2 weeks, which is my first time off since December 2021. I asked her 3 months ago to find some way into work so I could sleep in, let our son sleep in, and be able to do activities with him out of the house. She brushed me off and was non-committal. Fast forward to today, of course she found no other way to work. She did not even look at a bus schedule. She says they are too dirty and they are dangerous due to drug addicts. She did not ask anyone to drive her. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. to drive her, 1 hour each way in rush hour. Now I have just enough time to clean, finish laundry, get groceries, feed our son, and then turn around and go back. I have no time to go to the pool with our son, which I told her was my priority today. After I got home I sent her a very frustrated text saying I can't believe she would do this, and she can find her own way tomorrow. I said don't even bother trying to wake me up because I'm not setting alarm and I will ignore you. She said I am and this is unacceptable. Am I the butthole here? Not the butthole. Isn't the phrase weaponized incompetence? She needs to learn how to drive or she needs to get over her fear of public transport. There will eventually be a time when nobody is available to chauffeur a full-grown woman to work. You've offered to take her to therapy on your insurance and she's refused. She's choosing to keep this problem with no regard for how it affects everyone who has to readjust to accommodate her. Not the butthole. Not the butthole, you are entitled to vacation and time with your son. She appears to have made no effort to make other arrangements or even attempt to take public transit. Getting up at 5:30 a.m., spending 1 hour each way in traffic, plus doing household chores is not vacation or relaxing in any way. Info: did she show interest in learning how to drive or is this something you put upon her? Learning to drive can be a very overwhelming experience at any age. Was the car purchased with her agreement or acknowledgement that she would one day be driving it? If not, then this is a huge weight you've placed on her shoulders. Sell the car and let her use this money on rideshare, etc. Am I the butthole for not giving up my chair? My mom, 59 female, and I 27 female, were baking a pie for my birthday all morning while her husband, mom remarried after my father passed, napped. Afterwards we decided to play a card game while the pie was in the oven. We begin playing when Dennis, 61 male fake name, finished his nap and asks if he can join. We say yes of course, and wait for him to sit down to play. As he's getting ready to play, he comments about how I'm sitting in the boss chair, aka the chair at the end of the table, and his usual spot. I jokingly reply that I'm a boss too, but it was apparently not taken as a joke. I don't get up because at this point I honestly thought he was playfully giving me a hard time. But he continues to make comments about how it's his chair and he wants to sit there, but it got to the point where he raises his voice and becomes adamant that I get up from his chair, so he can sit there. There are 4 other empty chairs at the table but he wants the one I'm sitting in. I ask him, are you serious? Multiple times because I found it quite childish and petty that he demand I move from the chair I'm sitting in, just because he wanted to sit in that particular chair. At this point I obviously know he was never joking, but it seems like he wants to assert his dominance over me. I'm not a dog he can kick off the couch so you can sit there, I'm a human being. I don't play games like that, so I got up and left without a word. Here's where I think I might be the butthole. I've been having relationships issues of my own and I'm staying with my mom and Dennis until things get better. They have opened their home to me and I'm wondering if I overstepped my welcome with the chair thing? Thank you in advance. WTF. Sounds like this dude is simmering in toxic masculinity. What did your mom say when all of this was going on? I take it she did nothing and just let him verbally abuse you over a chair? Not the butthole. Not the butthole. That's a huge red flag to me. It was a power move and Dennis thinks himself to be mighty important. Sorry your mom married a tool. Not the butthole. You're 27, not 7. Him raising his voice was uncalled for. If he asked nicely, That's where I normally sit. Would you please move so that I can sit there? And you said no, then you would probably be an ah. Demanding that you move makes him the ah, even though it was his house. If he wanted the house rules to be that no one ever sits in that chair except him, he could have communicated that before, when you moved in. Am I the butthole for telling my mother-in-law she is a nightmare and does not help with her pestering? I, 34 female, married my husband Logan, 37 male, 6 years ago. He was a widower with 2 children, Luca now 16 and Milo now 15. His first wife died when the boys were 5 and 6 years old, and we met a year later, became friends and more after several months of friendship. I get along fine with my stepsons. But they never wanted me to act motherly toward them, which I was fine with. I had hoped we would build up a friendship and maybe a close bond that was different to their parents but still special. Ever since my husband and I married, though, his parents have been making it clear that I need to embrace my role as the boys' mom. Logan told them to knock it off, and around him they did. But occasionally I would get a comment about how the boys do not act like they are close to me, and how I don't act like a mother should. It was bothersome, but I did my best to ignore it. Over time it started to weigh on me that my relationship with the boys remained distant. We get along fine, as I said. But that's about it. They are very close to their dad and I'm glad. They don't give me trouble. I just feel on the outside with them. Having the comments from my in-laws were not helping either. It felt like I couldn't do anything right. The boys didn't want me to act as a mom, so I remained just a support in their lives, but that meant my in-laws saw me as not being a good addition to their grandsons' lives. But I never wanted to be the jerk step-parent who forced myself on them either. I do not believe that is the way to go. When I got pregnant it only got worse. My emotions were a little more all over the place, and it hurt more to have that distant but polite relationship with the boys. Then, knowing my in-laws were likely watching every move I made during my pregnancy to see if I was favoring the baby over the boys, I ended up confiding in my mom about it. I just let go, and she was a great support. When I had my son, she would come over to offer support with my husband back at work. My mother-in-law stopped by while mom was here. She came to bring up the fact Luca and Milo had rejected her offer to get me a mother necklace for Christmas with photos of them and my son, telling her I was not their mom. She told me the fact the boys feel that way is shocking and they need me to do better. My mom told her it was time to leave and that the conversation was over. She told her to stay out of it. She told me I owe it to her grandsons to not make them feel like they have no mom. I was so desperate that I told her they don't want another mom. They never wanted me like that, and she and her husband were driving me to the brink with all the comments about me not doing a good job. I asked why she was such a nightmare and added she was not helping me or them. This was before Christmas. She is still furious. Logan decided we needed a time out from them. But his mom said I blew up at her for no good reason. I feel bad. Am I the butthole? All you need to know is that your husband is on your side here. Even he knows his own mom is an out-of-line old bag. Not the butthole. Not the butthole at all. In fact, kudos for respecting the kids' boundaries. Your feelings are valid. It's really weird as to why your mother-in-law wouldn't want respect the kids' boundaries/relationship with you. Not the butthole. Not forcing them to view you a certain way is exactly the right thing. Mother-in-law was being a nightmare meddler and needed to be called out. Let her be salty about it, that's her issue. Not the butthole. You have a decent relationship with your stepsons, and they never wanted you to take their mom's place. You followed their wishes, and that's exactly what you should do. This sub is full of stories from kids who hate their step-parents who are extremely pushy and trying to force themselves into a full parent role. Your mother-in-law needs to stay the hell away, and let you have the relationship with your stepsons that they want. Am I the butthole for ordering takeout instead of cooking the dinner my wife planned? I work full-time in a physically demanding job, and my wife works part-time, less than 20 hours a week, so she cooks dinner most nights. I do cook as well on weekends. I'll do breakfast and dinner. If I manage to get home early on weeknights, like before 6:30, I'll cook. I do clean up on nights I don't cook, so I am pulling my weight in the kitchen. I'll even cook her favorite meals half the time, so it's not like her wants and needs get ignored. Yesterday afternoon my wife texted me to tell me she wasn't feeling well and she wasn't up for cooking and asked if I could handle dinner. Told her no problem. I wound up getting off much later than I anticipated and didn't want to cook either, so I tried calling her to see if she was alright with me picking up something on the way home. She didn't answer, so I thought to hell with it and swung by this really nice Italian restaurant we go to sometimes. I got the dish she always gets and a dessert for her and brought it home. Plated it for her and brought it up to her. She asked where the stuff she got out to cook was, and I told her after 14 hours moving heaving crap and on my feet I wasn't up to cooking either, so I brought home this instead. She had really wanted what she planned for that night and was pretty upset, saying how if I was going to flake on cooking then I shouldn't have said I'd handle dinner when she asked. She wound up not eating what I brought her and made the dinner she had planned at 9 at night. She was still sore about it this morning. Am I the butthole for bringing home takeout instead of cooking? Edit to add, no, it's not likely she's pregnant. I got snipped 11 years ago, did all of my follow-ups, and have been zero count since then. Not the butthole. You did handle dinner, just not the way she wanted. Picking up takeout is a far cry from flaking out on it. Not the butthole. You tried to check with her about getting takeout and it doesn't sound like she explicitly said that she only wanted the meal she had planned on having. She just wanted someone else to handle dinner, which you did. Not the butthole. You did the best you could and provided her with everything she needed, and your alternative was even incredibly considerate. She's really entitled and insensitive, you deserve better. I hope she apologizes. Not the butthole. In our household, the question isn't really about who will cook, but rather who is responsible for dinner. Often this means cooking. Sometimes when we're thinking about money, it definitely means cooking. But barring that, the person who is in charge of dinner makes the plan. Food is food and being fed is being fed. She wasn't up to cooking and you brought home food after work. No need for a tantrum. Am I the butthole for hiding from my brother's kids? I, 27 female, am the weird quiet one in my family. Holidays growing up were mostly my brother and cousins running around and breaking things while I got in trouble for trying to sneak off to read a book. So rude. Pay attention to your family. Now my brother, 31 male, has 6 kids, 13 m, female, 11, female, 8, female, 8, female, 5 3 m, and things are exactly the same, just with even more kids and chaos than before. I moved back to my hometown for a job a few months ago. My brother and his wife insisted that I had to do Christmas at their house since I hadn't done the big family thing in 4 years. I thought I would just drop by, eat some food I didn't have to cook, and leave. When I got to their house, it wasn't just them there but also 2 of our cousins and all of their kids plus some friends of theirs I didn't know. Half the adults were already drinking, the kids were all hyped up because Christmas, the TV was turned all the way up. And of course kids are kids, they want attention and hugs and they want to show you what Santa brought them. It's normal. But I'm not normal, and the twins are going through a screeching phase, and the youngest likes to climb people like they're trees, so it was a lot. I tried a few times to take a break in the garage or upstairs guest room, but I couldn't get more than 5 minutes alone before I either had kids following me or Sil coming and going, "Here's Auntie." We found her. The only place where no one followed me was the laundry room where they had piled all the boxes and wrapping paper from the morning, so for probably half an hour I just sat on the floor like a happy little trash goblin. When I got back to the group, people were pissed at me. My Sil and cousins all say that as the only single adult there, it was my responsibility to watch the kids so the parents could get the day off. No one actually asked me to do this, just assumed I would. My brother is offended that I would hide from his children. I was hiding from everyone. Even the oldest 2 kids were mad because they got roped into watching the younger ones when no one could find me. I do feel bad about this. Am I the butthole for hiding from my very noisy family? Not the butthole. Definitely nope. It was never and should never have been your responsibility to watch the kids. They should respect your boundaries as well, and if you don't want to listen to the kids screeching, you shouldn't have to. Not the butthole. Being a single female in a family does not equal to free child caretaker. You seem to be an introvert, so basically your extremely extrovert brother's family might simply too much for your social batteries. There's nothing wrong with that. Am I the butthole for saying my parents should give me some of the money that they spend on my sister? My sister, 14, is a genius. Like she took an IQ test and they said she was a genius. Both of us went to a Catholic school for elementary school. My sister was taking 8th grade algebra by the time she was in 3rd grade, and when she was in 5th grade she spent the first half of every day at a high school taking advanced classes. My parents pulled her out of school when she was in 6th grade and hired a tutor for her to meet her at her level and enrolled her in community college classes. Now she's in 9th grade and she just started at this elite school. It's so competitive that my school has been around for 50 years and she's the second person to get in. This school is far from our house though, so we moved closer to the school and my parents enrolled me in public school. They said the public schools here are great, so there's no reason for me to go to private school, even though my sister is going to a private school so expensive that my mom is working for the first time in her life to pay for it after my sister's scholarship. I really think it's not fair that my sister goes to this fancy school while I'm stuck at public school, so I told them they should be giving me at least some of the money that they're spending on my sister and her school to make up for the fact that I had to move for her school and that now I'm stuck at public school because her school is too expensive. They laughed at me and said that I was being spoiled. My school is just fine, and if I want money I need to babysit or walk dogs. I think they're being unfair and favoring my sister, but every family member that I tell about this takes their side. Am I the butthole for thinking I should get some of the money too? This sounds like the real issue is not the money, but that you feel overlooked/unseen. I'm sure there are healthier ways to get your parents' attention. Try talking to them about how you feel without acting out. This isn't really about money. The Iranian yogurt is not the issue here. Kids will cost different amounts depending on their extracurriculars and their exact needs. Arguing you should get money because your sister's schooling costs more is like if I had argued I should have gotten a few grand a year because my brother's football plus baseball plus tennis plus golf cost way more money than me playing soccer. It just isn't how things work. If the only thing had changed is that your sister started at a very expensive school, you would be in butthole for expecting a handout for that reason. The problem isn't the money, though, it's that it sounds like your parents are basically changing their lives entirely around her without caring about you at all. Your parents moving for your sister, taking you out of private education for your sister, starting a job solely for the benefit of your sister, and presumably focusing all of their efforts and time on your sister sounds like it could be making her the golden child and you the scapegoat, though there isn't enough information to say. The potential issues here run far deeper than just money. No buttholes here. I think the problem here is that you don't feel seen, compared to prodigy sister. Take comfort in the fact that being a prodigy rarely does anyone much actual good, I guess. As far as money goes, as far as I can see, your parents are just doing their best to give sister opportunities, without taking opportunities from you. I have to agree with the rest of your family on that one. Not the butthole. Private schools are better for getting into college than public schools. By switching you to public school to put your sister in an elite private school, they are favoring your sister. You had to move, leave your friends and school behind, just because your sister is gifted. So what's next? She gets into an Ivy League college while you can only go to community college because your parents can't afford you going to a university because they're paying for your sister. I guess if she has a full ride scholarship, they can make it up to you by paying for your university of choice tuition, since they can only pay her tuition and not yours right now. Am I the butthole for telling my mother that I love her but don't like her? My 16 female mother, 40 SF, read in some parenting book that saying to your child I love you but I don't like you is a good way to discipline them. I don't necessarily agree with that parenting book because, as a child, I viewed my mother liking me and loving me as the same. I used to have pretty bad attachment anxiety and would cry whenever she left me alone, and she would get tired of me and tell me stop crying. When you act like this, I love you but don't like you, then she would be cold with me for the rest of the day. As far as I was concerned, what did it matter if she loved me if she refused to talk to me because she disliked me so much? Anyway, that's just backstory. The main crux of my issue is that my mother was playing with my younger brothers, 5 meters and 2 meters, and the 5-year-old asked why I wasn't playing. I had just returned from school and walked in right to hear his question, and my mother responding, I don't think your sister loves me the way that you two do. I didn't realize it until that moment, but I had been mentally preparing to use my mother's statement back to her for my entire life. I responded, Mom, of course I love you, but I don't like you. Then I remembered why I've never used that phrase. My mother got really angry at me. She got up and went to her bedroom, and then she's been very cold with me the rest of the day. The only thing she's said to me is she told me to not tell my father about any of this, because, if he hears, he'll get angry at both of us for fighting and will just cause a bigger scene. I really feel badly for my brothers because they were confused. Apparently my mother's never used that term on them. They were also upset because the play session got cut short, and I feel badly because I could have just been nicer to my mother. Am I the butthole for responding how I did? Isn't it supposed to be, I love you but I don't like what you're doing / behavior etc. Telling your child you don't love them isn't discipline. You're not the butthole. This is a tough one, but I'm going to go with not the butthole. Your mother used that phrase with you and, while I can certainly see the philosophy behind it, I can also see why that would be deeply upsetting and confusing for a child. She really was asking for a fight when she told your younger siblings that you don't love her like they do. What does that even mean? What was her reasoning for saying that? That is just nasty? Unnecessary? Am I the butthole for not teaching my daughter English? I'm 34 female, a native Anglophone from Australia, but I live in France and speak French in my daily life. I have a French husband, 31 male, and we have a daughter, 4 female, together. Our daughter only speaks French. I didn't teach her English because it would have been difficult teaching her, especially when everyone around her speaks French and me and my husband speak French to each other. I didn't think this was a problem since we live in France, and if she wants to learn English she can when she goes to school. We, me, husband, daughter, went to Australia for Christmas and New Year's. This is the first time my daughter has been to Australia or met my family. When we were there, multiple family members were surprised and annoyed by the fact my daughter didn't speak English and couldn't speak to them. My mum even had a conversation with me about it and told me my daughter wouldn't get anywhere in life without learning English. Silly, because she literally lives in France surrounded by French speakers, and she'll learn English in school anyway. Said it was bad she couldn't communicate with her family and even compared it to child abuse. I wouldn't have thought it was that controversial to only teach French to a child who lives in France. Most of my family are still upset with me and say I'm depriving her of English and that she needs to learn it, but my husband says it's reasonable for a child in France to only speak French and that trying to make her learn English will confuse her. So, am I the butthole? You're the butthole. As a half Italian, half English guy raised in England, I wish my parents had taught me Italian growing up. By the time I was learning foreign languages in school, I was already having trouble with them that I wouldn't have had being raised in a bilingual environment. You chose to take your daughter to Australia, where you knew her family didn't speak French. You've basically put her in a situation where she's isolated from her relatives. Why would it confuse the child? Loads of kids grow up in multilingual homes learning to speak more than one language. No harm in knowing more than one language. You're the butthole. If you never planned to travel to Australia and never wanted a relationship with your family there, it would be fine. But that's not what you're doing. You are basically isolating her from the rest of the family. Am I the butthole for telling my elderly in-laws who recently suffered a loss that we are divorced? My ex-husband and I are in the midst of our divorce proceedings. I have agreed not to tell mutual friends even though he's pretending we are still together. My in-laws, until now, and my family don't know either except for my sister. My in-laws are kind, genuine and generous people. My ex-husband is an only child, he's 47. We are gay men, but prior to our divorce we were considering surrogacy overseas, which is expensive and could cost us £200,000. My in-laws offered to pitch in. When my sister had her baby they were incredibly generous and kind, and her daughter as if she's ours. They were really looking forward to us potentially welcoming a child. My mother-in-law, who comes from a small family, has lost her sister as well recently, which has hit them hard. I have attended Christmas dinner with my in-laws for my ex's sake and played the role of the happy couple because he didn't want to cause them stress, but I think there's more to it and that it is about money. They have recently brought up the surrogacy when my mother-in-law called me and I told them we are getting divorced. They are devastated. My ex is livid and says that I am wicked for bothering them with our personal problems and I was cruel for stressing them out because they are old. I think he's overplaying it, but I haven't spoken to my in-laws since I have told them a week ago. Am I the butthole for telling them the truth? Not the butthole, and there has to be more to why he's trying to hide it. Not the butthole. They are 70 and as long as they are in good health, you should treat them like any other adult. 70 doesn't necessarily mean frail. I think X is overreacting. Not the butthole. Stop lying to your family members. Not the butthole. X has a hidden agenda here and you are wise to have no part in it. Also, if his parents are adults in their right minds, why in the world would you disrespect them and play pretend during holidays? They have lived long enough to understand what you two are going through. You have so many things to get through in the coming year. Regret over lying to people you care for isn't one of them. Am I the butthole for calling out our wedding photographer? My husband, 32 male, and I, 31 female, were married at the end of October, and we used a friend of my Sil as our wedding photographer. This woman is a professional photographer, and was very formal in terms of our communication throughout the process. However, after the wedding, she didn't acknowledge the tip I sent her via Venmo, and stopped responding to my text and emails. I only texted twice and emailed once, as I knew the Thanksgiving holiday was coming up soon after our wedding, and I didn't want to put much pressure on her in terms of editing our images. After a couple of weeks I became concerned that she didn't receive the extra payment and about the lack of communication in general, so I asked my Sil to get in touch. My Sil said everything was all good with her photographer friend, and that she was still editing the images. The day after I spoke to my Sil, I received a Christmas card from my brother and Sil that was clearly a professional photograph from my wedding. After asking my Sil, She said her photographer friend sent her the pic about a week before our conversation and confirmed that she hadn't sent any sort of payment for extra photos. I was pissed I didn't receive any sort of friends and family discount from this woman, and she sent the pictures that I had paid for to my relatives without even bothering to answer any texts or emails from me. We were recently at a holiday party together, and I called her out in front of a couple of people, saying that I was so surprised to receive a picture from my wedding and a Christmas card when I hadn't even received any sort of correspondence from her at all when I was the one who paid for the pictures. She said that I was insanely rude and dramatic, that she and my Sil were close friends, so of course she would send her a cute picture of her family while she was going through the editing process. I told her I would have loved to use my own wedding photos for a Christmas card, but it was too late at that point. She gave a snotty half apology while rolling her eyes, but basically blamed me for not telling her that I specifically wanted a picture for a Christmas card. My Sil is annoyed at me for saying anything to her friend now, too, and has me wondering, am I the butthole? Not the butthole. This photographer gave the photos you paid for to someone else, and didn't even ask you first. This is insanely unprofessional behavior. Not the butthole. I'm a pro wedding photographer myself. I came in fully ready, and admittedly biased, to defend her. Holiday season, blah blah. However, under no circumstances would I share images with a guest before the client has seen any. I don't care how close me and said guest are. That they're annoyed shows they don't get it. You paid for the service. Not the butthole. That's not professional behavior on her part to not communicate. The editing process can certainly take a long time, depending on how many photos were taken, but she should at the very least be responding to your questions. Being a professional is more than having nice equipment and a good eye. And on top of all that, giving out even a single one of your photos to someone else without your permission is just wow. It doesn't matter that it's a close friend. She would have had to provide a release to your Sil in order for the photo to be printed on a card, too. So there is a lot of very unprofessional behavior here. Am I the butthole for not watching my nieces and nephews during New Year's dinner? So my husband and I went over to my Sil for New Year's dinner. There were about 20 people over for dinner, half of whom were children. We are the only couple there that have no children. When it came time for dinner, the smaller children eat first, and then they slowly made their way to the living room to go play so that the adults could eat. When it came down to the adults' turn and everyone went to sit, my husband and I were told that there was not enough room at the table, so to sit in the living room to eat just us two. Ouch, but whatever, this isn't new behavior from them. This brings me to where I'm wondering if I might be in the wrong. When the kids were playing, they got into an argument. It wasn't that big of a deal, and I was eating. I figured I'd let it play out to see if it resolved itself, but one of the kids went running to the kitchen to cry to their parent and causing a disruption. Other Sil got up from the kitchen to come talk to her kid and gave me a stank eye. So, am I the butthole for not stopping an argument between my nieces and nephews in the living room while I was having my dinner, that led to the main dinner party being interrupted? Info: people are asking why we go here. We moved very very far away from my family and friends to be here with his family. We have nowhere else to go, and I'll be honest, my Sil is an amazing cook, and New Year's dinner is her thing, can't miss it. Edit 2, hey guys. I just want to clarify, I know they're the odd who expect us to basically babysit. We don't mind at all sitting with the kids. The question I was trying to ask was if I was the odd for not stopping the argument since I was already there instead of just letting it play out. There was no violence, was hoping they would resolve it between cousins. I understand the side of people telling me to just not participate in holidays anymore. We have put up boundaries over the last few years, and being sat in the living room will not be a reason to not participate in holidays for us since we do it for the nieces and nephews. The food is just a bonus. Thank you to everyone who replied. Not the butthole, and well played. In the future, I'll suggest an alternative to the no chairs situation that I've learned from many years of being the only woman in the boardroom. Stand. Preferably behind or in the blind spot of the person who is administering this slight. There's nothing quite like standing to command a room full of people sheepishly sitting while you regale them with your best and most cheerful story. Bonus that the person you're standing behind will feel super awkward because they don't know whether to turn to look at you or continue eating. Be sure to whisk your way off to the kitchen or other non-kid space before they lose interest or ignore you. What are you doing, letting yourself be in that room to begin with? Not the butthole. Don't accept this no kids rubbish. If they want a babysitter, they should hire one. Unless you were actually asked and agreed, it is not your job. Am I the butthole for not eating only Chinese food at a potluck? To preface, I'm Indian, 25 female, and I moved abroad for my master's and I met my boyfriend, 28 male, on Hinge, and we've been dating for about, male, 8. We're both social and have managed to make a few members of our respective friend groups interact due to their mutual interests, and together we're a pretty close-knit group now. Anyway, we went club hopping on Nye and decided it would be really cute if we had a multicultural brunch the next day. And all of this was DoorDash because none of us can cook. The criteria was we bring one main dish/appetizer and one dessert/appetizer, so none of us cheap out on our contribution and none of us have any allergies, so that wasn't an issue either. There were Italian dishes, Chinese, Ethiopian, French, Vietnamese, American, and 2 different regional Indian dishes. Overall, it slapped. They were all comfort food, nothing fancy. India has Indo-Chinese food which I despise, and it's ruined soy sauce for me. I retch and it triggers bad acidity. I actively avoid a majority of East Asian cuisine, obviously. Anyway, we served ourselves an equal amount of all the dishes and ate. A Chinese was sitting next to me and noticed I didn't reach for their dishes. It was Kung Pao chicken and chow mein. I ate every other dish and they saw that. I don't know how they honed in on this because we were chattering away and I paid attention to nobody's plate but mine. They proceeded to ask me if I'd like some and I declined. They insisted and I declined again, so they asked why. I said I don't eat a lot of East Asian food because it doesn't sit well with me. They then pointed out I had taken the Korean food. Korean food was literally kimbap and hotteok, which passed my caveat, so I said that. So, they called me racist. And not jokingly. I apologized and said that's not my intention, it's literally a food intolerance and I'm allowed to have one. And even if that's not the case, I'm allowed to eat what I want to eat. A dug their heels in and said it was disrespectful that I won't even try some and I am in butthole for trying to exclude them on New Year's. I joked saying it's not their New Year yet, because Chinese New Year is a different day and my specific region in India also has a different New Year. This pissed them off and they asked to swap places away from me. The brunch ended on an uncomfortable note and AITA sent a message on the GC saying my intolerant behavior and refusal to accept their culture has made the group an unsafe place for them, so they'll be leaving. My BF and friends asked me to apologize just so. This conversation happened on the GC and I conceded and said I'll put it up on here and whatever the outcome we act accordingly. So yeah, am I the butthole for not eating the Chinese? Edit. 1. Firstly, people are assuming this kimbap was just rice and seaweed. It was actually pickled vegetables, rice and seaweed. No hint of soy sauce whatsoever other than as a dip. When I said I've had just rice and seaweed, it was very much past tense when my Korean friend made it for me that way. None of these dishes were handmade by any of us. 2. And people seem to have misunderstood when I said not all that Korean. I understood original comment to mean I had a lot of Korean dishes. There were 2 and I had them because neither had soy sauce. It does not mean it's not fully Korean or it's a Korean rip-off. 3. No, I don't think Indo-Chinese and Chinese is the same. I think soy sauce is the same. I also didn't say I don't eat East Asian food, I said I don't eat most East Asian food. I've maintained this throughout. If anyone sees inconsistencies, point them out and I'll own up to them or clarify accordingly. Edit 2. I'm really grateful for all the different opinions I got here. While almost all the not the butthole opinions mirrored my exact thought process, the everybody sucks here / you're the butthole opinions gave me the perspective I lacked. I also spoke to my friends and older sister back home in India and they also gave me a similar take. I love them. After the first couple everybody sucks here, I started feeling guilty and texted A. I told them I would like to sort things out, preferably in real life, but over text works if they would rather it be that way. We decided to text first and they told me they were sorry for lashing out and being intrusive, and it was because their current internship displayed some racist sentiments and they felt excluded from the general social aspects of the work as opposed to their mostly white peers. While it's not an excuse, it's a very, very valid explanation. I felt horrible for my poor and inconsiderate joke and apologized for it. For all those saying my BF and friends should have intervened or stood up for me. I don't need that from anyone. I believe during conflicts it should only be the persons of conflicts having the conversation unless it's getting too out of hand / violent. I'm glad they didn't opine here because it might have made A feel further isolated. I did apologize for their lack of tact and misplaced anger, and we decided to spend some one-on-one time to dispel any awkwardness before we hung out again as a group. A said they wanted to first talk to the other members of the group before being added back in, and that's fair. So, all's well that ends well? Not the butthole. How is not eating food you don't like racist? Sounds like they were looking for a reason to be nasty to you. I would 100% tell them they won't get an apology put of me for not eating food I don't like. Crazy. Not the butthole for the food thing. You are allowed to not like / eat food without any explanation. A was reaching to call it racist for you to dislike food. The New Year joke was in bad taste though, it wasn't really necessary in the moment, especially since A was already riled up. Do I think you're racist? No. Not at all. Not the butthole. Not the butthole, it is a potluck. Since when did we start policing what people eat at a potluck? I'm so sick of people bullying other people about what they do and do not eat. I don't eat lobster. Nobody accuses me of being racist against people who live in Maine. But I can tell you that people crap their pants over the fact that I don't eat lobster and I live in New England. I'm 50 years old and I think they finally stopped freaking out about it. I was born in New England, it's not like I moved here for the food. People are weird. I'm sorry this happened to you, and no, you should not apologize for not liking certain foods ever. Your significant other is trying to violate boundaries you have about food that you want to eat, and that's weird. You are allowed to have food preferences. If they keep pushing this, you need to point out how controlling it is, because this isn't normal. Am I the butthole for letting my daughters refer to their stepdad as their dad? With my ex-partner, I have 2 daughters, 12F and 9F. He walked out on us when I was pregnant with, female, 9. He has been in and out of their lives since. He doesn't pay anything towards them. I haven't cut him off from them because at the end of the day they are still his daughters and he had a right to see them. They have also said they want to see him. He usually sees them when they are at their grands, his mums. It's never arranged. He's usually dropping in to borrow money off her. I am now married to Seb and I have another daughter and a son with him. Seb has been a part of their lives for 8 years. Seb had never intended to take the father role for them, as he had stepdads forcing themselves into the role when he didn't want them. The girls accepted him straight away, and started calling him dad when he moved in with us. Both of them refer to Seb as their dad and refer to their bio father by his actual name, Dean, and call him Dean to his face. To begin with, Seb would ask them to call him Seb because he didn't want to step on Dean's toes. However, when, female, 12 made him a Father's Day card and told him that because he did everything for her that her friends' dads did for them, that he was her dad. We've stopped correcting it. By chance, I saw Dean when I was commuting to work before Christmas, and he was furious about the girls continuing to call Seb dad and Dean by his name. I tried explaining it was a choice they had made because of his actions, and that if he had a problem with it, he might want to start treating them better to earn the title of dad. He called me a freaking jerk and walked off. Then at Christmas, the girls were visiting their gran as their Uncle James and cousins were visiting for Christmas. I got a call from, female, 9, asking me to come and pick them up as they wanted to come home. Dean had turned up, drunk, and had a go at both of them for calling Seb dad. James threw Dean out of the house while Gran and the cousins tried to calm the girls down, but the damage was done and they wanted to come home. I picked them up. I have now been sent a letter telling me that Dean is intending to take me to court to get custody and for parental alienation. Postmarked early in December, it was delayed due to the post strikes. Their gran is telling me that it's my fault for letting them disrespect Dean. James understands where I am coming from, but thinks that to keep the peace, they should have called Dean dad to his face even if he doesn't deserve it. I don't feel like that it's my place to decide what they call Dean and Seb, it's theirs. Am I the butthole for letting my girls call their stepdad dad? Duh. Quick way to shut this guy up is to go for back child support. Not the butthole. Let him sue. He will get nowhere and will further alienate himself from his daughters. Doesn't seem he needs any help doing that. Am I the butthole for not going to my mother-in-law's Mother's Day event/activity because she said my mom couldn't come? My partner, 27 male, and I, 26 female, have been together 4 years. Our parents had not met each other at this point. My mother-in-law was wanting to do an activity together to celebrate Mother's Day. The only people attending were her husband, their daughter, and my partner and myself. I had agreed to go. This particular activity she chose was something my own mother loved to do, and I had just found out my mother was going to be by herself on Mother's Day. So I suggested we invite my mother too, and my mother and mother-in-law had not met yet, so it would be a nice day for them to do an activity they both enjoy and can bond over. My partner agreed and asked my mother-in-law if we could add my mother to the booking. She said no because she wants the day to be all about her. I was upset because it's Mother's Day, a day to celebrate all mothers, and I decided not to attend the activity at all and visited my own mother instead. Am I the butthole? Easiest not the butthole I've come across so far. She wants the day to be about her and is asking another woman's daughter to celebrate her and exclude her own mother. Shaking my head. Not the butthole. It's Mother's Day, not this specific mother over here day. Am I the butthole for not wanting to help my partner with his children's expenses? English is not my first language, so I'm sorry if I make some mistakes. So I, 56 female, and my partner, 56 male, have been together for a few years. Our relationship is mostly good. We both make money, but I make much more than him, so although we never explicitly talked about it, I knew that I was going to be the one financially in charge in our relationship, and from the beginning I was fine with it. So for the past years I have taken care of most of our expenses, including rent. A few months ago my partner decided that he wanted his daughter, 18 female, from a past relationship to come to live with us, so that he can spend more time with her. If I'm being honest, I wasn't so happy about this decision, but I accepted it and I supported my partner because I understand that this is important for him. The problem is that he was supposed to be in complete charge of all of his daughter's expenses, but since he doesn't make much money he is always asking me to lend him money, but he never pays me back. I have been feeling very uncomfortable with this situation because I don't want to be financially responsible for another person right now, but I haven't said anything because I don't know how to address this situation with my partner and because I feel like I'm being selfish. Now, recently my partner has been giving signs that he wants his other child, 16 male, to come live with us as well. And I definitely don't want this to happen because I already know that I will also have to pay for his stuff. I feel like I'm being really selfish, so I can't say no anytime he asks me for money for his kids, but I don't want to help financially in any way. I want him to be the only one in charge of his kids' expenses, but that also means that his kids will have to limit themselves to many things due to lack of money. And deep down I know that if I don't help he won't be able to take good care of his kids. I don't know what to do. So, am I the butthole? Not the butthole. They are his kids, not yours. It is completely unreasonable to expect you to support them on top of you already footing most of the bills. I would make this my hill to die on. Protecting yourself from being taken advantage of is not being selfish. Not the butthole for how you feel, but you will be the if you don't address this immediately. You must sit your partner down and explain to him that his children are his financial responsibility and you don't want to carry this burden and that he can't expect it of you. The longer you delay having this conversation, the worse this situation will become. He has no right to expect this of you no matter how much you make. These are his children. You're not responsible for providing for them. Not the butthole, but when he officially asks for the other child to move in is the perfect opportunity for you to open up the conversation. Ask him what his plan is to financially support both children. If he doesn't have one in the moment, tell him you won't consider it until he has an in-depth plan on how he's going to support both of his kids. Let him know that you've been the one mainly financially supporting his daughter even though he said he was going to do it, and you are not in a place where you can continue to financially support both, nor should it be your responsibility to. Let him know that you want to see him step up and take care of his kids, or at least have his daughter contribute if she is capable of getting some kind of job, because you aren't going to do it anymore. He is taking advantage of you and it's not okay. Unless either of his children are risking homelessness by not living with him, this is not your responsibility and you need to make that clear. He can still be an involved dad without having the kids live with you. Encourage him to set aside some time every month to spend a day off with each kid. Invite them over for dinner 1-2x a week. Am I the butthole for yelling at my husband because he won't go to the doctor? Update: I showed him some of the comments on this thread and he got really emotional and admitted that the reason he didn't want to go was because he is just too exhausted to even go to the doctor. He asked me if I would help him make an appointment and drive him there, and of course I agreed. I think he needed to hear some perspectives from real people rather than stuff from Google. He cried and apologized and explained that it took everything in him just to go to the store today. But he actually agreed to go and I'm so glad. He said he just really needs help getting it all set up for him. He told me he has been so stressed and he is getting to a point where he's not functional. He slept 17 hours today, so I definitely agree. I told him that the CPAP machines aren't what they used to be and he said he really didn't care anymore, he just wants to feel better and not to worry. Finally figured out how to editing because I mistyped my age, and to clarify the age of the baby in case it matters, I, 24 female, am constantly arguing with my husband, 35 male, because he will not go to the doctor for his sleep apnea. It's so freaking bad. We have a baby, 2 months, and his chainsaw snoring is constantly waking her and I both up. She's exclusively breastfed and every time she wakes up, she wants to eat, so I'm stuck with it. Him sleeping in the other room does nothing because it's that loud. I keep begging him to go to the doctor and he refuses because he doesn't want a CPAP machine. He keeps getting mad because I won't get off the subject, and I've explained to him that I'm going to be in a perpetually pissy mood until I can get a good night's sleep. I told him that it's ridiculous I have to deal with it with no choice when he has a choice and just doesn't want to be Darth Vader in his words. So I yelled at him and I told him that snoring is the third leading cause of divorce, to which he replied, "Great. More statistics." And I told him it's incredibly selfish, not to mention dangerous, and he has a baby to be healthy for now. He pouted for like 10 minutes and then fell asleep, again. Am I the butthole because I keep bringing it up to him? Should I say something about a 33-yo impregnating a 20-yo? OP, do you know why your husband impregnated a 19-20-year-old when he was in his 30s? It's because women his own age have learned not to put up with that kind of behavior. Not the butthole. Leave the husband, take the cannoli. Edit, read months as years. 21-year-old. Am I the butthole for not sharing my room with my partner? So I live in a 3BR app with 2 friends. One of the friends is moving out, so a room is becoming available next month. I offered to my partner if they wanted the room, they get first dibs. They want to live with me but don't want to pay a full room share, they want to split my room. Now, it's not a very big room. It's pretty much just enough room for my bed, dresser, and desk. I work from home. Not only is it tight for 2 people in the room together, but there is already no room for more stuff. They suggested that we move my desk into the available room and that becomes my office, and we share my room. The problem with that is now I'm paying for 2 rooms. They offered to pay half my room's rent but can't afford to pay a whole room. So my rent would go up 1.5x, not double. I can afford to do this. But then I wouldn't be saving any money towards possible home ownership in the future. I know, a pipe dream. They are upset that I'm not into sharing the room. For me it's for financial reasons, but they see it as me not wanting to make sacrifices to be able to live with them. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. Why would you give up some of your living space, privacy to pay more for someone to live with you, and they pay less than you are paying? It makes no sense. Not the butthole. Considering the fact that your partner would probably end up sleeping in your bed every night, it probably makes sense that you don't need a partner A, partner B room, but having the second room for your office, clothes storage etc. is a good idea. Your partner does need to pay half, however. If they can't pay for a single room, what else are they going to expect you to pay for? Unless their income is massively less than yours and you are combining finances, this is a red flag.